Hey folks, Mel the Train Tutor back in the studio and back to help you with your builds. Now we've been working on the Let's Make Battlefield Basics, creating all sorts of awesome scatter terrain for your battlefield. But I've been promising an end of level boss, and this is the start of a little mini series, to wrap up the Battlefield Basics series. So we're going to be doing trenches. Now I'm not talking about simple breastworks, which are scatter pieces that go in the middle of the table. I'm talking about the closest thing we can get as scatter pieces to the fully featured trench works. I'm talking about table edges, i.e. trenches where there's a hill that raises up towards the end of the table, and then you've got your trenches embedded into it. And not just a single trench, we're going to be tackling a 6 to 8 foot trench line, okay, which will incorporate trenches, bunkers, fire positions, communication trenches, and I'm even looking at doing a special sort of massive naval gun artillery emplacement. Okay, so I'm thinking this series is probably going to be 3 to 4 videos, Now this first video is concentrated on making the main earthworks of the trenches and making them modular, making them so that they're functional and you can balance models on them, and so that's what all the tips in this video are about. So with that in mind, shall we crack on? Come on. So the first stage of making our modular trench lines is obviously the bases. Now typically with the Let's Makes we've been using EPVC, expanded PVC foam board. In this case I've switched back to my old favourite, MDF. Now MDF is a lot more sturdier than EPVC over longer pieces, which makes it perfect for this sort of work. Now obviously if you're working with MDF, remember you're going to need power tools, you're going to need sharp blades, and you're going to need to sand. So watch those fingers and mask up when you sand, because MDF dust is not good for you guys. Now a couple of quick tricks, or at least one good quick trick. These are my end pieces. These are going to be the end of the trench lines. We need to do the middle bits. But how do you get 2 foot modular pieces? Okay, my cutting ain't that great, so I capitalise on the cutting service at B&Q. Now when I get my boards from B&Q, I buy them in 8 foot by 4 foot, and I have them cut down into 2 foot by 4 foot strips. Okay, it just makes it easier for me to transport them around and use them in the studio, and 2 foot or 4 foot is about the maximum length I'm going to use. Now in this case I'm benefiting by it being 2 foot, because what I've done is, as you can see, I've got my 4 foot by 2 foot piece here, and I've drawn my lines for my trench in the middle, out of the board, leaving me with 2 perfectly cut 2 foot ends. Just like that. Now I know these lines are absolutely perfect because they're machine cut. I know this is absolutely perfect because it's machine cut. It's capitalising on pre-cuts, which is always a good idea when you're doing modular stuff. If you try and cut the line straight yourself, you might get it might go off a little bit, but it might cause you problems. This way, no problems with it. All fitting together absolutely beautifully. Now, that's how I'm doing the bases. My bases are 2 foot wide by 15 inches. Quite deep, and I'll explain why as we go on. But the next stage is I need to actually start carving out my foam for this. And for that, I got this stuff. Okay, this is expanded polystyrene. Another B&Q purchase, Jabite Light. It's their high quality stuff. Now it's actually a hell of a lot denser, than the normal white expanded polystyrene. So for trench lines, which people might lean on, we don't know what tanks are going on it, that sort of stuff, and I'm building it up. I want something a little bit sturdier, but I don't want to use HDF. The high density foam. It's a bit of a waste if you're not carving details into it. Okay, that's what your HD foam is for your sculpting work. So, since it's all going to be covered, expanding foam it is. My next job, is I've got to cut this into lots of bits like that. Right, let's crack on. So my first bit of cutting is done, and I've cut out all my big sheets into the rough shapes. yeah, that I need to do this. Now this has been quite simple. Yeah, just get a rough idea, and then I've used a hot knife to cut through this. You can work with this stuff with blades and with sandpaper and that sort of stuff. It is doable, but if you're going to attempt a project like this, hot tools are a definite plus, you know what I mean? Now, as I said, I've done a rough cut, okay, but it's all about capitalising on these edges. You'll keep hearing me say that. So if I come along here, you'll notice that I've got the ends of the board here. And they are lovely, lovely smooth cuts. Yeah, and with a really nice corner piece there. But if I spin it round, okay, as you can see, we've got the more jaggedy bit. Yeah, and it's extending a little bit because I cut it with a little bit off so I can trim it down. My next job is I'm going to get a standard wire cutter, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the boards, this 2-foot board and this 2-foot board, hold them in place, lined up at the other side, and that will give me a nice template that I can just take my wire cutter all the way down, yeah, and get a really nice clean cut, being it perfectly 2 foot. That's the plan anyway. It's always worked in the past, so it should do this time. Now, there are times when you're doing these sort of things where you edge them and you put side edges in. I'm not doing this on this project, but if you are doing that, then you need to factor in the width of the edge, one side, the other side, into the cutting of your polystyrene. Yeah, pretty typical. Yeah, 6mm on each edge for a bit of 6mm MDF or EPVC, so you need to take 12mm off. So that's the job. Next job, to cut that one, to cut that one, to cut that one, and as I am doing this video, I am working on a little side project, yeah, another piece to go in with all of this, yeah, a 2-foot massive naval gun emplacement with underground bunker, but you're going to see that in a separate video, so you might see things going on over here, yeah, just ignore them, that's coming in a separate video, guys. In the meantime, yeah, let's get these trimmed down to the right size. Same with my corner pieces that I've got over here. Yeah, and then we can start to sort of lay out, start cutting our trenches and our emplacements and all that sort of stuff. So, crack on time. So, I've been shaping up my boards and I've got them roughly the right size, but I've made a bit of a mistake. I slipped a little, and some of my sheets are shorter than the actual board, only by a couple of millimetres, but enough that it matters. Okay, now this isn't a major faux pas yet. I've done this in the past and I have a fix for it, which basically involves cutting it down the middle and then separating it a little. I'll show you that later in the video, but if you do make a mistake when you're cutting and sharpening up your edges, don't worry, there is a fix for it, which is why I'm not really that worried. But moving on, we've got a shaped, right size. We need to make our trenches and start cutting them out. And so to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the corner pieces. Okay, now these are my corner pieces. Okay, they are trench enders, so I'll be able to put these either side of a 2-foot piece, a 4-foot piece, or a 6-foot piece. And what this will mean is, if I want my trenches not to go from table edge to table edge, but sort of go halfway along or something like that, or if I want it to be a bit of a bastion, I can end cap it. Okay, now, so I've got this piece, it's 50 inches long, yeah, and 1 foot, yeah, and it's the table edge length. So it matches these pieces here and provides an end cap. Okay, but of course we need to make sure that our trenches are modular, that when we line everything up it all fits and it all lines up, and to do that I've got one of these. Now this is a bit of cardboard, okay, just a bit of corrugated cardboard, but it's measured 15 inches across there. Okay, this point is 9 inches, which means this is 3 inches high in total, which means this is a 1 in 3 slope. Models will stand on this slope. Then you can see I've got my trench cut out, and then it goes to the end of the board. So if I come along, yeah, and I put that there, just like that, yeah, what it means is I can come along and I can easily mark out where I need to put my trenches with a blade. Yeah, and now, if I bring this up, yeah, you can see just about there, yeah, the trench lines. Okay, and that's what I'm going to use to make sure across all of these pieces they're uniform. So when I line them up, my trenches line up as well. Now this is the first template, okay, and what I'm going to do is just to show you a rough idea of how it's going to work. I'm going to do this one. Yeah, I'll bring this back and then I'll show you how I'm going to transfer this template idea onto the larger pieces. Okay, come on. So we've cut out our corner piece and we've glued it down, yeah, which is our next bit. Now if you look at the template, you can see that the template works perfectly and lines that up. Now I can't shape this bank until this is a solid piece and glued. So I've got to leave this overnight to glue. Now, so what I'm doing is I'm working on the other bits. Yeah, so if we come across here to the more straighter bits, let me slide this across, we have another template. Okay, and if I place that there, you can immediately see, yeah, that is my trench line. It's got a solid bit in here because I just wanted to keep this bit of the template connected to this bit of the template for as I do my measurements and all that sort of stuff. I can cut this out. I'll know where this middle bit to cut is once I cut these pieces. But what that'll do is it will standardise that join there, okay, which means that my trenches will go on in a normal way. Now, once again, the simple way of doing it is I'm going to come along, I'm going to put my cardboard template there, shape it in, cut into it, mark it off, and then that will make sure they're modular. So I've got this one, I've got this one, and I'm working on the secret project on the side there. Okay, so let's get those in. Okay, let's crack on. So working on the major 2 foot long trench sections, and I'm gluing the boards together. Now if you come up, you can see my cut marks in there that I've done on these 2 loose boards. Now once again, that's using this template, yeah, and I've got a couple of pins in it, so I can just place it on, pin it, mark out where they're going, and obviously I've done it on there. You know, I've just got these 2 sheets to cut out. Now the important thing is when you do modular trenches is that even though I've done this big cardboard template over here to sort of lay out where I want my trench lines, the only thing that has to be perfect is the edges where they meet up. Everything in the middle could be higgledy-piggledy, okay, it doesn't really matter. So all I need to do is when I'm doing my precise cutting, okay, with my hot wire cutter, I just need to make sure that that little bit there so do the top bit first, get off, and then come in and do the bottom bit. And what I have is my cuts in perfectly. So if I grab that one, yeah, and I put those there, they line up perfectly. So everything in the middle I can have a wiggle about with. Yeah, so my next job is to cut the sort of the ends so we can get on with wiggling about in the middle. Right, I'll crack on. So we've cut out the initial ends of our trenches, yeah, so we can make sure they're modular. And we've got a trench template to sort of make sure that everything's in line and that sort of stuff. And I can quickly just mark it off like that. And then it comes time for the cutting. Now with the cutting, if I bring this up to here, okay, because I'm going to struggle reaching in with my hot wire cutter to cut this. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blade, I'm going to cut straight down the middle, okay, separate them into 2 separate pieces, and then I can go in with my hot wire cutter and just trim the edges to how I want them. Okay, so we need to get our trenches in, so that's the next job. So we've cut out the main trenches, as you can see here, and you can see these nice deep cuts. Now, something I do want to point out straight from the off, yeah? You'll notice that as I've done these trench walls, they're actually sloped. So if I bring these up, you can see there's a slope to the wall. There's a couple of reasons for that. I've done trenches in the past where I've done the vertical walls, and what I've found is, one, yeah, because with your model bases, yeah, you often have arms, etc., that extend beyond the base. If you do vertical walls, as you drop them in, you don't get enough room for the actual bases because their arms are sticking out. So by making them slightly sloped, it's better for placing the models. On top of that, if you go for vertical slopes, what you get this situation of is as you're moving your models, you have to go in with your hands in sort of a pincer motion to get it in. If you widen the top and bevel them out, making them slightly V-shaped, yeah, your hands fit much better for moving the models around. And finally, yeah, from experience, I found out that if you slightly slope the surfaces of your trench, it's easier to get things to adhere to them. So our trench walls, when we do our wood bits and that sort of stuff, if they're slightly sloped, it's a lot easier for me to glue those onto that side, and also to get in with a paintbrush, yeah, down, especially down at the bottom, because it's wider, okay? So, quick tip on that one is, if you're doing trench works, don't do them completely vertical. Open them up a little, yeah? It's actually the reverse of what trenches were actually like. A lot of the trenches were sort of sloped inwards towards the top, yeah? So you could sort of duck behind a trench and cover from artillery fire. But in gameplay terms, we need sort of function, okay? So we sort of adapt it, we open up the top just to make it easier to make and easier to play with. Now, another little tip is, as you're shaping all these, don't glue them together then shape them. Yeah, this is what Mel did on this one, okay? And it's all great, you know, I cut my bits and glued them down, but I forgot I've got to do emplacements on this sort of stuff, which means I need a router to cut it out because I can't cut the individual sheets. So while you're doing your major cutting, yeah, don't be Mel, don't glue your sheets. So with that in mind, with this one that I've already started cutting, okay, they are separate sheets, which makes it a lot easier to cut. Now these have been done with my hot wire cutter, freehand, and they're looking pretty good. Now what we've got here is we've got the trench line, we've got a bit of a communications trench, and then this is going to be a bunker that's raised up so it can look over the slope. Yeah, moving over to this one, what we've got is we're going to have some sort of emplacement here. Okay, now this is going to be a two-tier emplacement, which is why I need to do it in two stages essentially. But once again, we've got a communication trench and a path into it. Okay, so my next job is get this out, and I just need to cut these out, and I'll bring them back once they're done. So we've done all our major cuts and we're at the gluing stage, and if we come back down here, yeah, you can see I've glued sort of an artillery emplacement with a viewer bench there sort of thing. I've got the trenches. I'm starting to work on gluing this one together. Now I've glued these elements, but I've yet to glue the bottom piece and I've yet to glue the slope. And the reason for that is that, if you remember earlier in the video, I said I think I'd messed up. Okay, and I've cut one of my pieces a couple of mil too short for the board. And this is it. It's about 3 mil too short for the length of the board, which means if I glue it straight down, yeah, I'm either going to have one edge flat and then like a step in the middle of the edge of the other foam, okay, or if I try and adjust it, I'm going to have a little indent on both sides, which I'll have to fill and that sort of stuff. Way too much hassle from experience. So what I'm going to do, okay, is a little trick. Now it's only 2 or 3 millimeters, and 2 or 3 millimeters is an easy gap to fill if it isn't at the edge. If it's in the middle, it's a dead easy gap to fill. So, sharp blade, yeah, give it a good blow. Yeah, get the bits off because you don't want those in the way. And I've cut it into 2 separate pieces. Now what this means is when I put it down, I'll be able to separate it just a couple of millimeters, giving me completely flat edges, okay, and leaving me with, when it actually comes out, a tiny little line there to fill and a tiny little line on the slope there to fill, which will be really easy. Okay, whereas if I tried to sort of fill the gaps at the sides, it'd be more of a challenge. Now you may say, yeah, but this is the front bit. What about the back bit? Well, I don't need to worry about the back bit because I've already cut through it with a communication trench. So I can make sure that side lines up and I can make sure that side lines up anyway. Yeah, so my next job is the gluing. Yeah, so let me get that set up. Right, to the gluing stage, and there's a couple of tips on this. One of the problems that you have when you're doing large trench works is that your scatter pieces tend to be long and not that thin. And anyone who's made terrain before will know that is the sweet spot. Yeah, the perfect setup conditions for warping. So we've got to fight the warp. Okay, I feel like a grey knight. Now, to do that, what I've done is I've done lots of little spots, okay? And let me explain this to you. Okay, first off, PVA is air drying. So if I do a big coat all the way over this, yeah, to glue it down, what will happen is that the edge will glue, okay? But then everything inside will stay wet because the edge will become airtight and no air will be able to get into the middle. By putting lots of little spots down, what it allows me to do is stick it down but still let air get through so all of this dries. So these spots will actually give better adhesion than if I went over the entire piece and gave it a good solid coat. Now the other factor is warping is caused by PVA creep. Yeah, so if you have a long piece of PVA with a long piece of MDF with PVA all the way across it, as it dries, each little bit of that PVA slowly shrinks, and across the entirety of it, yeah, it reduces down, causing the board to warp up. In this case, yeah, because there's no continuous lines, if these little bobs of PVA creep a little, it'll be absorbed by the foam. It won't translate into warping on the actual board. So, if you want to fight warp and you fancy being a grey knight, use spots, not lines. Okay, so, a couple more on there. Now, it is just a simple matter of, yeah, getting it, line it, drop, ah! I'm going to leave that in. Yeah, dropping it down, putting it on your piece, squaring it up, which is the challenging bit, just to make sure it lines up. Do you know what? This has been a cheeky one as well. Yeah, I thought this was lined up perfectly, but it isn't. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use my blade, I'm going to adjust this one as well, cut straight through it, adjust it while the PVA is still wet, and then I'm just going to carry on, use the dot method to drop these other elements in, okay? And then they will be done and everything will be ready for gluing. Well, it is gluing, everything will be ready for drying. Right, I better crack on. Right, all my pieces are glued and solid now, and we've reached the stage where all our functional cuts are done and it's time to move on to our our slopes, yeah, and start getting a bit arty with it. Now, to do this and to keep it modular, we're back with the template. I've used this template, and what I've done is I've applied it to the side, and then with a knife I've just come along and marked it out. And what I'm left with is, do you see... You can see that line, can't you? Yeah, running from there, up there, yeah, and across. Now, that line is standardized, which means if I use this template on this side and on this bit, yeah, if I cut to that line, then I automatically know that when I put them together, they're going to meet. Now, it's time to actually mark them all out, cut the lines. Now, to cut the lines, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using a hot wire cutter. Yeah, and I'm going to be coming along and I'm going to be cutting out sections bit by bit to sort of get it down. And I'm going to leave probably about 5 mil above that line when I do my major hot wire cutting. That's because I can come in with sandpaper afterwards and start to shape it and take it down to that line. If I cut immediately to that line, yes, it will be correct, but it gives me no wiggle room to play with, yeah, in the shaping of the hill. Okay, so that's my battle plan. Mark these up, okay, do my cuts, and I'll come back when they're done. So I've got the basic shaping done, and if we come down to the desk, here you can see it in all its glory. Well, you can't even see it in all its glory because it's 6 foot long. But you can see that I've got the shape to it now. Now, I've done my 1 in 3 slope off my template, and I've done a rough cut. Okay, but what that means is I know troops will stand on it. Yeah, they may slide down it at the minute because it's a little bit smooth, but once there's a texture on there, it will be absolutely fine. Now, moving forward, just to take you through what I've done, okay, I've used the template and I've cut it off, so I've took the bulk of the work off, yeah, with my hot wire cutter, then I've come in with my blade, yeah, and I've cut to my marked template line. Same across here and same across here. And what that means is I can grab this one, yeah, push that one out, I can grab that one, put that there, yeah, throw that there, and make, what you call it, smaller one, or I could even throw those two together. Simple as that. But I haven't started shaping it yet. Now you may say, hey up both, just a minute, yeah, what do you mean I'm shaping it? It looks like a trench to me. Well, yes it does. But at the minute what's happening is, because I've cut into these my template lines, I have this situation where it goes up a little and then it's pretty much uniform. i.e. it's nice long straight flat curves up to a sharp edge, and I don't want that. What I want to do is I want to make it a little bit more undulating, a little bit more real. Okay, now to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my hot wire cutter, I'm going to come in with my blade, and I'm going to come in with sandpaper, and I'm going to shape these up a bit. Okay, as long as I stay away from these lines at the edge, they will always be modular. So this is my safety area, about 1 centimetre in. Anything between 1 centimetre on one side and 1 centimetre on the other side, I can do whatever I want with. Yeah, I can make it high, I can make it low, I can do anything, yeah, but I just need to maintain those edges to maintain the modularity. And that's a key feature with the sort of construction of trenches. Okay, so with that in mind, or the construction of modular trenches. And so with that in mind, as I start again, yeah, time to do, this is where I get creative. Yeah, this is the arty bit. I like this bit. Yeah, so crack on. So the basic sanding and shaping is done, and it's looking rather nice. Now if you look at it, you'll notice that I've changed it up quite significantly. We've dropped the trench height down a little. We've created a flat surface across the ridge of the trench. This is so that when we get our models and they charge up the bank, which we know they can stand on, yeah, when they get to the top, they're sort of standing ahead and flat, rather than on a slope pointing up with a load of people shooting up from there. It's a little aesthetic, yeah, but it works, you know what I mean? Other things that I've done is I've made sure that there's various areas that I've pushed into and I've sloped in different ways, okay? And what I mean is the bank goes up a bit, down a bit, and what I didn't want was just a completely flat one level surface, because it's not realistic. Okay, and so it's played out rather well. I've gone along, I've smoothed all my edges, made all this undulating, yeah, and I've come along here and I've sanded this piece in. But if I bring this up, yeah, you will notice, yeah, look how scraggy. Now, when you sand polystyrene, whenever it gets thin, it will break. And that's just polystyrene, you've just got to accept that's what it does. Okay, but it's not a problem because I already expected that to happen, and I knew I'd be going in with a bit of filler and just coming along here and just smoothing it over and solving the problem, which is the same on all the little areas where it's gone a little bit bobbly. We're going to put filler on it, it'll be fine. Okay, but this would be the stage where I start to put filler on, okay, and I start filling in my gaps and that sort of stuff. I can't do that yet. The reason being is because I wanted to incorporate a bunker, yeah, and so if you see this piece over here, yeah, this piece has got our square for the bunker on it. I can't do my gap filling until the bunker's built, so that's my next job. Now, with regards to how I'm going to build the bunker, dead simple. We're in, this is the final of the Let's Makes. I'm going to do the same foam bunker tutorial method that I did for the tutorial. So I'll throw a link up to it, and if you're interested in that, you can go follow it there. But I'm going to put that in there. Now, before I get cracked on with that, one of the other things that I've done is I've also done my final sort of shaping and sanding. Now this means coming along with your edge piece, yeah, and making sure everything lines up, everything fits snugly. And one of the problems when you do modular pieces is what you don't want is at some point on a join line, yeah, there'll be a little bump which forces your pieces apart. And so what I do is I get a T-square, okay, and I know that this MDF cut here is perfectly fine, that's perfectly straight. It's just whether these are sticking out a bit. So all you got to do is put it on, yeah, and then slowly move it forward, yeah. As you move it forward, yeah, if at any point the T-square moves away from the the MDF, you've got a bump. And at that point, a little bit of sandpaper, come in, smooth it out, recheck it, okay, and away you go. Now there are tools, there are hot wire cutting tools and stuff like that, but scroll tables, but the vast majority of you guys won't have those, so this is how I did it before I got the scroll table, and to be truthful, as you can see, it's actually how I prefer doing it now, okay? One of my concerns with the scroll table is, once you get to this stage, if you make a mistake, it's really hard to fix, so having a little bit more control works well for me. So my next job is I need to put in a bunker and I need to put in a couple of fire steps. So I'll be back when they're done. See you in a sec. So guys, that's the bunker in and it's done exactly as I did it in the Let's Make video. And if you take a look, it's looking rather nice. Let me bring that up for you. Okay. Quite nice, isn't it? Spin it round. Yeah, now there's still gaps to be filled and that sort of stuff, which is where we're getting to now. As you put these sort of trench systems together, as I mentioned before, if you need to separate things or put bits together and that sort of stuff, you often get gaps. Now, with a lot of tiny gaps, you can just go over with a little bit of filler or spackle and just hide them. But if they're slightly larger, going over with filler, it can sink in and it can leave a depression. And when you've got situations like this, where you've got linear gaps, yeah, they will always show up when you go over them with filler, yeah. You'll have to go over them once or twice, possibly 3 times, yeah. They can be really problematic, but there's a quick tip for for solving them, yeah. Now this works on little gaps like this, or even these huge ones around this bunker that I'm going to be working on. Yeah, what I've got there is I've got a little sliver, yeah, of polystyrene that I've cut. And all I need to do is, dead simple, get some PVA, force a little bit of PVA in the hole, yeah, get my sliver, yeah, push my sliver in until it's firm, yeah, then get a blade, yeah, come along, cut off the top, and then very quickly, normally once it's actually dry, but just to show you, a bit of sandpaper. And if I bring that back up, do you see how I've filled that gap there? Perfect. Really easy to do. So my next job is I just need to fill this gap here. I need to put a bit around my bunkers and just look at the other pieces, make sure they're up to speed. And then we're going to come in with the final sort of patching. And that will pretty much round up the constructing the major earthworks of the trenches. Yeah, so I better get cracked on. So that's those gaps filled, and if I bring it up, yeah, you can see how I've just put slivers all the way around that bunker and just trimmed them off. There's a little bit of PVA in there, so when it dries it goes all set. And if I bring that up, you can see how I've made that disappear as well. But that's not the only little sort of gaps and things you need to touch up when you're doing the sort of earthworks of your trenches. Yeah, there's also the issue of, do you remember at the start when I said, yeah, as you put them together and as you sand it, all these little bits will break off. Now this isn't perfect, and if you try and texture over this, this will show through. At the same time, these edges here, yeah, quite often you can get little bits breaking off as you're shaping them and doing all that sort of stuff. So even though I'm going to continue after this video with making more detail on the main boards, I need to sharpen up those edges. And for those, it's filler time. So if I bring this one across, yeah, you can see nice and clearly, yeah, how all I've done is I've just got a bit of filler and I've just smoothed all the way along there. Applied it into all the dips. Don't worry about getting it 100% right, because if there's anything that shows through, it's just a clump foliage indicator for where you put your bushes later, guys. Yeah, so don't worry about that, but get those all the way through there, and then at the same time, yeah, what I've done is I've given the edges a quick skim just to toughen them up. Now we know we're going to be texturing this up anyway afterwards, so it's going to get tougher, but it's a bit like adding extra reinforcement. Now this was done with dial filler. Yeah, just a matter of getting it out, smudging it down, and then get wet in your hand and smoothing it out. Yeah, now I can't do anything more on this until this is all firmed up, but I've got to do these. But that pretty much wraps up, okay, the actual trench work. So have a look at these pics. So guys, that's it for making the actual earthworks of the trenches. We've covered the actual the tips on getting your MDF boards and getting them all cut the right way and making sure they're modular. We've covered about tips on how to glue your sheets together, avoid warping, make it modular again using the templates, the side templates, the top templates. I'll give you a little bit of insight of how you can sort of make bunkers in there and all that sort of stuff, and how you can change just a simple flat surface to a more undulating terrain to make it a little bit more realistic. Now this pretty much wraps up getting the basic shape and everything of the bunkers. The next thing we need to do is really start going into the detail of them. Now the reason that's coming in the next video is because all of that applies to whether they're table edge pieces or whether you're making fully featured modular boards or a fully featured modular table. So all the trench walls, all the sandbagging placements, the craters, all that sort of stuff that we're going to be covering in the next video, all fits whether it's a table edge and modular piece or a fully featured board, which is why they're going to be in that video. So keep your eyes out for that one. In the meantime, as always, if you've got any questions about anything I've done on this, get them down below in the comments. I always answer my comments, guys, and answer my questions. Like it, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and if you do like what I'm doing here, guys, and it does help you with your hobby, please consider supporting the channel, whether it's a one-off via the PayPal below, or whether you jump on Patreon for $1 a month and just help keep the lights on, the cameras rolling, and me helping you with your hobby. So that's down to you. I hope you do support me, but in the meantime, we've got more videos coming on this, lots more, and you're going to like them, okay? And I will leave you with, yeah, subscribe somewhere there, Patreon someone there, there's some more video links down there, and I will see you really soon, guys. All the best, yeah? Ta-ra.